Hey everyone, welcome to Polypop. So everyone loves nostalgia, right? Well, this time we are going to be talking about one of my favorite nostalgic shows, Boy Meets World. If you've never seen the show, it starts when the characters are in 6th grade and ends when they graduate college. A huge portion of the show is devoted to the relationship between the main character Corey and his soulmate Topanga. They met on the monkey bars, and they are each other's first kiss in 6th grade. They start dating in 8th grade, they get engaged at their high school graduation ceremony, and they get married halfway through college. They are literally perfect monogamy embodied. Well, let me tell you another perfect love story. A city boy goes on a weekend ski trip to the mountains, and tragically sprains his ankle before he can get his first run-in. The weekend looks ruined, but while cooped up in the lodge, he meets a girl, and they spend all day talking. And then they put an extra log on the fire so they can stay up all night talking too. However, their lives are on different paths, so the weekend ends and they part ways. A few weeks later, that girl follows her heart and shows up on his doorstep, hoping that they can defy the world and be together anyways. That sounds like a pretty strong love story, right? Well, too fucking bad that we live in a monogamous world, and that story happened to Corey with someone other than Topanga. Boy Meets World was absolutely the kind of show that actively tried to shape the minds of its viewers, and sometimes it was really obvious about it. I don't think the creators ever expected someone to take away the idea that monogamy is a cruel, cruel system from their work, though, and I certainly have. This was probably one of the first love triangles I ever encountered, and I was never able to reconcile the injustice of it all until I realized that polyamory was a viable option. First of all, the show never managed to say that what Corey and Lauren had wasn't real. The only conclusion they came to was that Corey and Topanga were realer.
Sean, yeah. I like Lauren. I like spending time with her. But I can live without her. I can't live without Topanga.
When Topanga breaks up with Corey over the incident, it was not because she didn't love him, but it was because she was convinced that if he really loved her, he would have never struggled with the decision to give up Lauren. Here's the thing, though. Lauren is kind of awesome. She isn't just some pretty face that catches Corey's eye. She is an intelligent, emotional, fun, fully fleshed out personality, and the connection between her and Corey isn't something that either of them chose. It was just a fact. The choice was if they were going to acknowledge it or lie about it, and under monogamy, they had to choose to lie about it. The monogamous belief is that if you love someone, you won't even notice anyone else. And as nice and convenient as it would be if that were true, sometimes people like Lauren enter your life and make that not true. Even though Corey never stopped loving Topanga, the idea that this is how it is supposed to be almost destroyed them. The only reason Corey and Topanga were able to get over this and get back together is that Topanga had a similar experience. She met a deep, intellectual, artsy type, and she went out on a fancy date with him, and romance was in the air, and they kissed, and she realized that it just wasn't the same as when she was with Corey. She figures out that what she and Corey have is stronger than anything else, and she understands that even if Lauren and Corey felt something with each other, what Topanga and Corey have together is going to be much stronger than anything else that comes along. So great! Our heroes have discovered that no matter who else comes along, they will always choose each other over anyone else. That's something that's really important to know under monogamy. Still, it makes me really sad that Corey and Lauren have to live their entire lives not experiencing each other. And it also makes me really sad that Topanga, the straight-A student, had to pass up a relationship with someone who shares her passion and intellect. Corey and Topanga get engaged very quickly after this. Their marriage gets put off a few times due to cold feet, though. And one of the cold feet incidents is a plotline that haunted me before I discovered polyamory. Corey begins having nightmares where he repeatedly kills his best friend in more and more vicious and absurd ways. He has no idea what the dream means until he manages to stay asleep past Sean's death and sees what happens after.
Sean!
Corey, what are you doing?
Shoving everyone down the elevator shaft. Guess who's next?
Hi, Corey.
Lauren? What are you doing here? I'm over you. You shouldn't be here.
I'm not Lauren.
Then who are you?
I'm everything you're giving up. The girls you'll never get to meet. The places you'll never get to go. The life you'll never have.
I don't understand.
Bye, Corey.
Wait!
This one scene pretty much captures everything that scares me about monogamy. It is horrifically tragic to think of everything you lose by focusing all of your time on one person. The fear of your friendships and relationships that you already have fading away as you devote all of your time and energy to your marriage, and also the fear of never knowing what people could have entered your life. It's terrible. Also, I want it known that the show never does provide an answer to Corey's fears on this topic. It just sidesteps to Topanga's own cold feet issues, and then they resolve Topanga's, but they never come back to resolve Corey's. Despite how perfect Corey and Topanga are for each other, and despite how happy they make each other, under monogamy they still have to give up who knows how much for each other. Would it not be a better life for them to be able to pursue whoever comes into their lives and still come back to each other? What if Corey and Topanga could have their perfect relationship and perfect marriage, but they didn't have to sacrifice so much to get it? Everyone always says that marriage is about struggle and sacrifice, but what if there was less of that and more working together to make each other's lives better? We only get one life to live, and it just feels wrong to me to purposefully narrow the scope of your experience. Yep. As a matter of fact, I am a fully grown adult, and yes, I do regularly watch a show targeted at middle schoolers. Boy Meets World was a big enough deal for me that watching the Where Are They Now bits is completely worth it for Girl Meets World for me. But because I am me, I started noticing some really cool poly-friendly messages being delivered in this show. The comic relief of the show is a character named Farkle. 30 years ago, his character would have been brushed off as an annoying nerd, but nowadays being a nerd isn't a social death sentence, so he's accepted by the crew. The important thing is that he very often, openly and unapologetically professes his undying love for both of the main female characters. I think once in the pilot episode someone says, "But Farkle, how can you be in love with both of them?" And he just responds, "Well, they're both so different, and they're both so amazing. How could anyone choose between the two of them?" And that's the end of it. No one ever questions it again. No one says, "That's not how it works, dude." They just accept his answer as not the expected one, but not one that they can really argue with either. Sure, the show isn't actively saying that this is how it should be, and it's not like the two girls actually return his affections and are dating him, but it is displaying poly-friendly thought patterns in a non-judgmental way, and that's pretty cool. So because this is a show about junior high school, obviously there is an episode about drama associated with the semi-formal dance. The main character, Riley, is freaking out because her kind of but not really boyfriend, Lucas, hasn't asked her to the dance yet. Well, someone else notices that too, named Charlie, so he asks her to the dance. Riley makes up an excuse to say that she can't go to the dance at all. Well, turns out Lucas just thought it was a given, so he forgot to make it official, and as punishment for lying to Charlie, Riley's parents, Corey and Topanga, force her to go to the dance to face the two of them. What she finds when she gets there is awesome. Instead of being mad at each other for being competition, Lucas and Charlie have become friends. So obviously, Disney is not going to write a show about preteens entering polyamorous relationships, so the episode ends with everyone just chucking romance out the window and all dancing with each other in a great mosh pit of friendship. Still, it is displaying a situation where there is romantic interest in more than one person at a time, and just no one is mad at each other about it. Under monogamy, Charlie and Lucas should have been at each other's throats, but instead they treat each other with respect, and they even acknowledge that they have things in common. This is exactly the kind of relationship I like to see metamors have in polyamory. I know exactly how much the show Boy Meets World meant to me growing up, and what it did to shape my worldview and morals. I believe that Girl Meets World has the potential to be a show of that same caliber for the current generation. So who knows? Maybe 15 years from now, there will be someone rambling on the internet about how much Girl Meets World taught them about being honest in their relationships, and how that helped them come to the conclusion that non-monogamy was right for them.
When this boy meets world.